This is the Ryder Cup Data Dive Show. Exciting week. We're inching closer to the Ryder Cup at Whistling Straits in Wisconsin. A lot of detail to go over tonight. We covered some of it in the initial research show. Really going to dig in, probably player by player, and look at some key metrics for each player. Maybe hint at perhaps what groups might make sense. I'm already on the record for saying I want a Wiesberger and Berger singles match. That way you can choose which Berger you want. Corny, but that's the way I am. So with a lot of data to get into, I don't want to make the intro too long. As always, social media links down in the description. Follow me there if you want to reach out and ask any questions or what advice you're looking for. Maybe some angles you want in DFS, as well as my betting cards. I don't know how much I'm going to be sports book betting on the Ryder Cup. I'm certainly going to be a part of the daily fantasy scene. And then, as always, statistics are provided by Fantasy National. And with a little bit of help from Wikipedia, I'll show you some spreadsheet that I put together for you regarding records from previous Ryder Cups and so on. How much it's worth or whatnot, it's up for debate, but at least we'll have some info to go on how players do in different formats. Finally, chat is open as always. Let me know what you're looking at or want to see, who you want to focus on, so on and so forth. So with that, let's dig into the data for the Ryder Cup. And we're going to start, as we always do, with Fantasy National. And I've added just one filter, as I did last night at with the initial research show. Let me get my keyboard out of the way, set up chat. Start at Fantasy National. I've added the time frame of the last 12 months. I just want to make sure that we're not looking too far back. Historical data, 2018, 2017, and whatnot, with the exception of last night when we looked at the PGA Championship in 2015, which was the last time Whistling Straits held a competition. We're actually going to go look at a couple other tournaments as well, but we'll look specifically at those. So again, that's why I wanted to limit down to the past 12 months. And you can see I've got all rounds, so you can see how many rounds each player has played here. Let's see, can I catch everybody? Yeah. So Wiesberger clearly the least at 33 rounds, and then I believe Scotty Sheffler the most at 98. So, the past calendar year essentially, last 12 months. John Rahm's the number one strokes gained total. No big shock there. Number one in the world by a pretty wide margin. Coming off a missed cut at the Fortinet. A lot of people might be digging into that. I think it was more of a tune-up just to make sure his mental state was locked in and working out any kinks or rust that may have come from a week or two off. There was a development that he had a stomach issue. We'll see how that affects him. I don't think it's going to be much, to be honest. But anyway, here we are at Fantasy National, and we looked at some interesting data last night, and I went ahead and made a mixed condition model that we'll go over towards the end of the show. But I really want to dig in kind of player by player and see the pros, the cons that are in favor for or in play, for each player. Which reminds me, I wanted to hit on this in the intro. Forgot about it until now. Wednesday night, as always, will be the DFS Tactics show, and then Thursday I'm going to have a special show. Usually I do special shows on Tuesday. This is going to be Thursday since the Ryder Cup doesn't start until Friday. And please join me as we're going to have a little bit of fun, picking winners, guessing records. The big thing for me, I'm going to try to see if I can guess pairings, 4-ball, foursomes. I'll go ahead and list the the 12-man single order. We'll see how much I get right. It'll be very little, if any. Actually, in fact, except for a couple of pairings that are pretty well guaranteed, I'm going to take a lot of credit if I guess one thing correct. But it's always fun. Put yourself in the mindset of the captains, and start going, down your list of players, down the opponent's list of players, and finding out strengths and weaknesses and such. So Thursday night will be fun. I hope you join me for that. As always, the chat will be live. We'll have some fun guessing lineups and such. So that'll be Thursday night. But coming back to the data dive, one of the big things we noticed last night was how much off the tee is going to be a big factor, especially here at Whistling Straits. It's always been a big factor when tournaments are held here. It's a pretty long course. When they play it as a par 72, it's about 7,500 yards. So as a par 71, and if you were here last night for the initial research, you'll remember. But if you weren't, they have converted the 11th, which is normally a par 5. Kind of a short par 5, to be honest, 560 or so. They've converted that into a long par 4 this week. So it's at par 71, playing at about 7,350 yards, give or take. And we also noticed how much the wind is predicted or projected to pick up this week, especially on Friday, the first day of the tournament. So it'll be interesting to see how weather will affect strategy and whatnot. So we're definitely going to look at some wind aspects as well. But I think first and foremost, like we always do, I'm going to look at putting, and especially for Whistling Straits. Putting has always been one of the key factors. It was the key metric for Whistling Straits in the PGA Championships. I went ahead and added the fast green speed. I'm extremely confident they're going to be fast at Whistling Straits this year. So when you look at fast bent putting over all of the rounds in the past 12 months, and you can see there's very few rounds. It looks like Sergio is the most at 18 down here. Bryson has 17. Oh, Finau has 19. So there's not a lot of rounds. So in fact, I'm actually going to go ahead and put last 24 in case we start jumping from stat to stat. But in the last 24 rounds, all the rounds in the last calendar year on fast bent greens, and now this might be, we might take this filter off of the fast just in case they don't make it as fast on the stem. But on fast bent greens, Patrick Cantley is your number one strokes gained putter with 1.5 per round. That's pretty solid. And of course, a lot of that is coming from this past FedEx Cup playoffs, where he gains gains 5 and 6 and 4 at the BMW. Just an incredible putting performance by Patrick Hanley at the BMW. And in the Northern Trust as well. I mean, he had, basically one round where he was negative, and even then it's so negligible it reads out as 0. It's just just a hair in the negative. So he has been very good on these fast bent greens. And in fact, when we look at 3-putt avoidance for Patrick Hanley, he had one bad round here at the Northern Trust, the second round at the Northern Trust. But other than that, he is pretty darn good at avoiding 3-putts, which is going to be a major factor as well this week at Whistling Straits. We saw that, and I'll go ahead and bring that up. I'll bring up the course breakdown here. We noticed that last night when we were doing our research. There's the average 3-putts per round. These greens are undulating. I don't want to call them misshapen, but they're long and narrow, or they just have a lot of contours to them, and it's going to be very important, very crucial that you hit your right spots on these greens, or you're going to be looking at some very, very long, difficult 2-putts. So not only is approach going to be such a factor, but if someone does happen to hit a wayward approach shot, which is going to happen. I mean, this course is tough. It's going to happen. You kind of want to see who can avoid 3-putts or who's the best at lag putting and so on and so forth. We mentioned how long the course is. Distance it matters. I don't want to go too much into this, but I do have the breakdown up in case we're wanting to see that. But again, Patrick Cantley, best putter in the past calendar year on these fast bent greens. You can come back. There's the mixed condition. So Patrick Cantley, Rory, DJ, Jon Rahm, and Jordan Spieth are your top 5. Then Poulter, Finau, Deschamps, English, and Terrell Hatton round out your top 10. And another key metric for this course is it's a Pete Dye course. So just looking at Pete Dye courses, no other filters in the past year. And again, notice the sample size. There's only 17. I mean, Paul Casey's the highest at 17 rounds in the past calendar year. So you don't want to. You want to make sure you understand what you're looking at and how little or how much data you're looking at. But in the past calendar year, Shane Lowry is actually your number 1 strokes gained total player on Pete Dye courses. Paul Casey, Fitzpatrick, Brooks Koepka, Justin Thomas is your top 5. Rahm, Deschamps, Cantley, Morkawa, and Finau round out the top 10. But you can see here, a lot of Euro. I mean, the top 3 are Euros. Brooks Koepka tied for 3rd. But let's take a look at Lowry on these Pete Dye courses. You had the PGA this year. Whistling Straits played really, really well. Did Lowry this year. You can see there, gains close to 10 strokes total. The Heritage this year, he had a bad 3rd round where he just couldn't make a putt, wasn't good around the green. His short game really let him down that round. But other than that, he was pretty darn good at the Heritage. And then at the Players, very, very good. Very, very good that week. So this year, at least, he has played Pete Dye courses extremely well. And somebody else who I kind of highlighted last night, Paul Casey. Paul Casey generally plays these Pete Dye courses well, all about approach shots and angles and such. And Paul Casey's one of the best in the world at iron play. Certainly not Colin Morkawa, but you look here at all these strokes gained approach numbers here. It's the numbers speak for themselves. He's a world-class iron player. The putter's been bulky, and especially on these Pete Dye designs. But if he cleans that up, Paul Casey's somebody to look out for this week. But as you can see, he missed the cut at the Heritage when his first round was just atrocious. Just completely atrocious. But other than that, he has had some amazing numbers on these Pete Dye courses. So 3 Euros at the top for strokes gained total on Pete Dye courses. So it's definitely going to be a factor. And of course, Euros tend to have better success in windy conditions and such. I'm going to go back to this all rounds filter here, and let's kind of just go player by player, hit some highlights here, and start thinking about how you might want to focus on the player's strengths and weaknesses, what you're kind of considering, especially for DFS. I don't have the DraftKings Sportsbook up. I took a gander at the odds today, and as they are normally with a small field, an invitational style field, the odds just, to me, they aren't there. And with this being such a unique format, I'm just going to kind of take the week off sportsbook betting wise. But by all means, if you're in chat, let me know if you're wanting to see some of those odds. I can bring them up real quick. But this will be more DFS focused, especially Wednesday, of course. But I'm not going to really go much into values of sportsbook and so on. Just more looking at raw data. But we've got this sorted by alphabetical. Let's start with Bryson. We bring up Bryson, and again, this is for all rounds in the past calendar year. So we may want to add some filters, we may not. The first thing that kind of jumps off the page is whatever you think of him, as a player, whether you love him or hate him. I mean, he's certainly a polarizing figure. And he doesn't get enough credit for his putting. He is a very good putter. He plays better when it's difficult. But the one thing that kind of worries me about Bryson, other than the off the course stuff, is he does not play well in the wind, and it is supposed to be pretty darn windy, especially Friday. I don't think there's any denying that he's going to be one of, if not the best off the tee, at least metric wise. Now, whether that is in play this week, it's not a shock, it shouldn't come as a shock that the time that he played in the President's Cup and the last time the Ryder Cup was held in 2018 in France, he has not played foursomes, which is alternate shot. His game is so unique, it's so different than everybody else's, that captains have just stuck him for singles and four ball, which is, Bryson, can devour some par fives. He can absolutely, spit out a couple of eagles and just outright win some holes. And that's great for, playing his own ball. But he goes about things so differently that it's very difficult to put him as a team in alternate shot format. So that's the first thing that kind of jumps off the page here for me. It's concerning that he doesn't play well in the wind. But otherwise, he's never been very good around the green, and in fact, he has lost, 8 straight events, at least measured events. Remember, the Masters and the Open Championship are proprietary, so we only get the strokes gained total. But in the last 8 measured events, he has been completely negative and around the green. The one good thing for in that regard is that around the green is going to matter the least among off the tee, putting, approach, and around the green. But it's not that it's a non-factor either. We went kind of hole by hole last night in the research show. I mean, if you're missing your irons, you're in some. I mean, this is not an exaggeration. Some 16 feet deep bunkers. And if that's the case, Bryson's just losing the hole. He's just going to lose the hole. So he has to be dead on with his irons. And generally, he has been pretty good with his irons, but there are times where he will get very wayward with them. He loses 5.5 earlier this year at the Wells Fargo. 2 of the 3 FedEx Cup events, he was pretty bad with the irons. The Rocket Mortgage, he was bad with the irons. I have my worries about Bryson this week. Not to mention that he's such a polarizing figure. I don't know how Steve Stricker is going to employ him and who he's going to pair him with when he does more than likely 4-ball. It'll be interesting if he puts him out for foursomes. I have my doubts. And for those of you who don't know the difference real quick, 4-ball is you have 2 teams of 2. There are 4 balls in play. That's why they call it 4-ball. And you play your own ball in. If you get a par and your partner gets a birdie, your team scores a birdie for that hole. And then lowest score on the hole wins. So 3 pars and a birdie would mean that the teammate that had the birdie will win the hole. Hopefully that makes sense for you all. And then foursomes is more commonly known as alternate shot. One partner will tee off, then the other will hit the next shot and alternate until the ball's in the hole. So again, like I was mentioning, it's really tough to put Bryson in that format just because of how unique and how I don't want to say unstable. It's just it's so risk reward that he just does things different than other players. His calculations are completely different than a lot of other players, and Not to insult anyone's, I just don't know if anyone speaks his language on the golf course. I mean, Bryson's just in a world of his own in that regard. So I have my concerns with Bryson this week. If the iron play comes back to, you know, the WGC here, the Northern Trust, it'll be okay. We know he's going to be good off the tee. The putting has been Jekyll and Hyde, which is kind of what you want. You would more prefer someone stable, but if someone has a hot putter, they're just going to take over a match and win a match. So we've seen at least that Bryson can get hot. I mean, he gains 9.5 at the BMW, 5 at the U.S. Open, 7 down here at the Wells Fargo. So it is certainly possible. And the other thing I want to take a look at, and I mentioned we were going to look at some special tournaments, is, did he not play in the match plays? He had to have. I want to look at the match plays. Not that it's the end all be all, but it is the one match play format on tour that we can kind of perhaps maybe extrapolate some data on how well these guys are going to do in a match play scenario. But it doesn't look like he has played the match play. Yeah, doesn't look like it. So that is one thing to consider, or that we will be considering. I don't think it's a pro or a con that he hasn't played the WGC Dell match play, but it is something I'm going to look at tonight. So there's the kind of the overview on Bryson. And again, if you're in chat, you know, let me know what you're wanting to see in these players, or if you want me to dig in a little bit more on something specific. But that was Bryson. You look here at Brooks, pretty well rounded in regards to just the strokes gained total for the past calendar year. Bent, he's certainly positive. He's not necessarily as good on Bermuda than he is on, or I'm sorry, he's not as good on Bent as he is Bermuda, but hey, he generally, I mean, this is big game Brooks. He's going to play well when it's difficult. But again, another one of these Americans who generally struggles in the wind. And we're going to see a little bit of a common theme. So that's 2 straight players here for the Americans that generally struggle in the wind. At least Friday. Now Saturday and Sunday looks a little bit less hectic, I'll say. Friday looks like it's pure links style golf. But we come down here to some more detailed data here for Brooks. Again, another player that is, not necessarily as bad as Bryson, but is not known for his around the green prowess. Putting can be lackluster. With Brooks, again, it's all about the tee ball and the irons. And he's been really darn good with both, especially off the tee lately. You see here, was this about 12 to 13 straight events here that he's been positive off the tee. His putting minus the tournament at the Byron Nelson has been pretty even, with some good performances like the WGC Congressional this year, U.S. Open, and he's had some pretty bad performances. Again, if you're rolling in some putts, obviously you're going to be faring a little better, but it's certainly a little bit of cause for concern, especially considering he's not coming in with great putting form, and his irons haven't been in great form either. Losing 2 at the Northern Trust. Now he gained exactly the same amount at the BMW, but still only top 20, or didn't even top 20, because he wasn't making putts. So definitely some worry there. WGC, Bridgestone, St. Jude, Mexico, I wonder how it is labeled here in Fantasy National. Give me one moment, as you can't see the search bar. I'm going to see. So it is, yeah. So it is WGC Match Play. That's 19 and 18. I wonder, is it just? I wonder if it's called Dell Match Play. No. Interesting. I'll have to find out, because I know he wasn't there this year. Let me look at somebody who I know was there. I think Sergio was. Masters, Byron Nelson. No. Well, now I'm just getting frustrated. Well, hopefully we'll stumble onto somebody here in a second. But getting back to Brooks, his thing off the tee, clearly, his irons can be dialed in, and they were dialed in except for, the WGC and the Northern Trust where he had a little bit of a hiccup there. But, if he's hitting these, where he won the Waste Management, second at the PGA, fourth at the U.S. Open, you got that kind of iron week from Brooks. It's going to be beneficial for the Americans. I don't necessarily have as much concern with Brooks as I do Bryson, but my confidence exactly isn't the highest either for Brooks. Let's move down to Bernd Wiesberger, the Dane. You can see, at least on the PGA metrics, he's not been very good putting. And that's a common theme here with Wiesberger in the United States. He has not played well when he's come over here, but he is a fixture on the Euro Tour. Very, very good on the European Tour. The one kind of European that doesn't necessarily play well in the wind, but again, these are windy conditions here over in America, not over in Europe. So, but you got to notice here, the tournaments that he is in, Open Championship, U.S. Open, PGA, Masters. He did play the Valero Texas Open this year. Players, Arnold Palmer, RSM, the Masters, U.S. Open. When he's over here, they are big time tournaments. And WGCs and such. So this guy's got some game. If you've never heard of him, he's got some game. It just hasn't translated over here stateside. He was probably, I know for a fact he was the last automatic qualifier for the Euros. A lot of people think that he is going to be one of the guys that comes out maybe one time and then plays singles, so only 2 matches. I tend to agree, although he does have some things going for him. He's a very good iron player. He's one of those kind of typical Euros in the sense that they can all play pretty well around the green. This is certainly a concern for Captain Padraig Harrington. He's not the strongest off the tee either. So it's going to take a pretty precise partner for him. I'm thinking somebody along the lines of maybe Rory, since Rory is a very good off the tee player. Bernd won't hurt you with irons. Par fives, Rory can, if Bernd has to hit the tee shot and Rory's approach is a little wayward, Bernd can help, with his around the green game. Someone who's really darn good off the tee. Maybe Matthew Fitzpatrick as well, although those two don't have a lot of distance between the two. But certainly Matthew Fitzpatrick's off the tee game complements Wiesberger's irons and wedges and chipping. So just a couple of names that might make sense in a pairing with Wiesberger. Again, just because the stats don't look good, just recognize all these tournaments that he's playing in over here are generally big time tournaments. WGC's majors. He played the Valero Texas Open this year to get, used to the Masters, in which he made the cut. Played the RSM last fall, fourth. Nothing to scoff at. Tied for fourth. Played really darn well that week. So, hey, Don't count out Bernd Wiesberger, but I'm pretty sure he's going to be one of those one round and singles type guys. Colin Morkawa, best iron player in the world. I don't think there's really any disputing that. His putting has certainly got better. He was not known for. He was known to struggle on the greens. His chipping is still an issue. Oh, I'm sorry. I was looking at Berger. Yeah, Colin Morkawa. He's still not the. I mean, he's the worst in this field at putting, but it has gotten better. He's not great around the green, and that's why his short game is the worst in the field. But when you dig into Colin Morkawa, I mean, yes, the putting numbers are pretty bad, and they've been bad recently, but there is hope for optimism. You see here, I mean, when he got second at the Memorial, I mean, he gained 5.5. When he won Congressional, gained 4. Sony earlier gained 3.5. When Colin Morkawa first came on tour, when he was his big gains, his positive weeks putting was gaining 1 stroke or gaining 0.5. Now he is starting to show that he can really get hot with the putter, but they're few and far between. Very few and very far between. He's never been known as good around the green, but the putting has been especially bad. He's been in very, very bad form. Lost 8 at the Tour Championship, lost 9 plus at the BMW, missed the cut at the Northern Trust. Of course, won the Open Championship, 4th at the U.S. Open, 8th at the PGA. So, he comes up big when it gets very difficult, and that's what you like to see. And certainly plays okay in the wind. But this is the 3rd straight American where I am very, very hesitant at being confident in Colin Morkawa. Bryson Brooks, I have the most confidence of in these 3. Certainly Morikawa has the game to play and can win. Obviously, he's winning major championships, but in a team format like this, he's never played the President's Cup. This will be his first Ryder Cup, so this is his first team format altogether. It's cause for concern. It's cause for concern. But again, the one thing you gotta like, when the situation gets tough, he's at his best. So he does have that going for him, and that's not. It's not a non-factor. To use a double negative, I mean that there is something there that when it's difficult, he plays his best. Now we move to Daniel Berger. Again, kind of like Brooks, he's just kind of solid all the way around. Around the green is certainly his worst statistic. He's not going to be overly flashy. He's just very consistent. He's a very solid contributor on the PGA Tour. I think this was a pretty wise pick, honestly, by Steve Stricker. Again, you don't see a lot of flaws in his game. His putting's been really bad lately, but generally, over the course of his career, he's been a pretty good putter. Bent is his worst surface, but I mean, even though it looks like he doesn't play his best when it's difficult, I mean, he's still gaining almost 9/10 of a stroke when it's difficult. So don't let the graph confuse you. I mean, look at this y-axis here. This is almost 1 full stroke by difficulty. Daniel Berger just plays well, and he plays very well in the wind. Plays very, very well in the wind. So you combine that with how unworldly, just unconscious he's been with his irons, and he's always been good off the tee. He's not the longest hitter by any means. He hits enough fairways to let his irons come into play. And, I mean, you can see here with the strokes gained approach, I mean, he gained 10 strokes with his irons at the St. Jude. He just couldn't convert it. He just didn't make enough putts to convert it. But, I mean, when you're gaining 10 strokes with your irons, gaining 6 strokes with your irons. I mean, look, he gained 6 strokes on approach with his irons and lost the same amount putting. I mean, you cut this in half, and that's easily a top 20, if not more, or if not better. So his irons, I mean, you see here, game 10, game 6, game 6.5, game 4, 5.5, 5. He's been out of his mind with his irons. I mean, out of his mind. The around the green is getting better. He's always been known as a pretty bad around the green player. It's certainly concerning seeing the putting, especially since it correlates with the bent green surface. But of the 4 Americans we've seen so far, Berger's the one I've got the most confidence in. Even though he's a rookie, he's even keeled, but I think he will let the crowd kind of get him going when it's a positive. I think he can feed off the crowd, but he's generally just a solid player with no weaknesses in his game. I mean, if you followed me for any time on this channel, you know how much of a advocate I am for Daniel Berger. Again, just a solid player all around. Won't wow you. He's just a solid professional golfer. DJ's next. Again, pretty darn solid. Although he is coming in with a lot of question marks. Kind of like Colin Morkawa. He's not been DJ-esque. POA is his best surface clearly, but it's not like he's bad on bent. He still gains strokes. Pretty darn good, whether it's windy, calm, or moderate, so you like that even when the wind picks up. Or if it dies down, he's generally just playing well. Solid all the way around. The thing that has been worrisome with DJ, he's always been pretty good off the tee. Even that's been worrisome lately. And his irons have always been pretty darn good. Those have fallen off lately. Now, the putting has certainly picked up. But he comes in with a lot of question marks. I mean, the game, other than his putting, has been trending in the wrong direction. You see here, even at the Tour Championship, he was really, really damn bad. He just made almost every freaking putt that week. At the BMW, he was still drawing a lot of putts. The irons still weren't good, but he at least had some positives on the peripherals. Northern Trust, very bad. Missed the cut, was making his putts, but couldn't do anything else. Now, the St. Jude played very well. 3M did not play well at all. People were disappointed at the Palmetto the week before the U.S. Open, where it was basically him and Terrell Hatton are the 2 big names at that tournament, and DJ tied for 10th. People were kind of down on him then. So DJ's coming in with a lot of questions. And a little known fact, DJ is actually the oldest player on the American roster at 37. Oldest player by 5 years. The next oldest is 32. And I believe that's Harris English. But DJ is 37, the oldest player on the American roster. That's how young the Americans went this time around for Whistling Straits. But yeah, so DJ, more questions coming in. That's 4 of the 5 or 4 of the 6 Americans that have some question marks coming into the Ryder Cup. Speaking of the aforementioned Harris English, caught fire at the end of the year to really make a name for himself. Second in strokes gained putting this week in the field, third in short game. Again, just another pretty balanced player, although he's got his irons and his off the tee are towards the bottom of the field. Again, remember, there's only 24 players, so this is pretty low comparison ranked. That's pretty low. But when you look at Harris English, what's there to say? His favored green type is bent, as we can see here from the BMW, the Northern Trust, Travelers. His putting's just been getting better and better. His irons were very, very good here for a stretch. Kind of lost it a little bit in the FedEx Cup, and nothing terrible. Yes, he did lose 2.5 or so on the Northern Trust, but otherwise pretty good. Slightly less than mediocre, but there were times where it was good. He's always been I don't want to say Jekyll and Hyde, just rather average off the tee. So it's his putting that's always made or broke him. And right now he's hot with the putter. And I think his demeanor will help. He's one of those guys that he doesn't seem to get rattled by the situation, but at the same time, he's also one of those guys that it doesn't seem like he will feed off the crowd either. He's just pretty even-keeled. That can be a good thing, can be a bad thing. The things that are going for him, though, again, great on bent, plays his best when it's difficult, and he plays very good in the wind. Very good in the wind. So him and Berger so far for the Americans have been the wind players, and I think that's definitely going to be a factor on Friday. We'll see about Saturday. Sunday, not so much. But there's a lot to like here for Harris English. You got to hope that the putter stays relatively hot, and he hits enough fairways, because he's not long off the tee at all. You got to hope he hits enough fairways to give himself or give his partner, if he's playing in foursomes, a chance to go at the green. So there's Harris English. Now we're going to have a little bit of a look at some Euros. Ian Poulter, best putter, best around the green, so therefore the best short game. Definitely not, at the bottom of this field as far as off the tee and approach. But everyone knows about Ian Poulter. He's the American killer, the American assassinator. We've established putting. I mean, he's the best putter in this field over the past calendar year. He's okay on bent. Generally just plays well, whatever the conditions, whether it's easy or difficult, windy or not. He's always been a very good putter, and that's going to play anywhere, especially at a Ryder Cup, when putting will win or lose you a match. His struggle has always been off the tee. Always has been off the tee is his struggle. But, I mean, you see here, he's still got those high finishes without the need for being great off the tee. The 1 week he was, bad on putting, he made up for it. He was good around the green. Actually was extremely positive off the tee. It was just so-so with his irons, and he's still, tied for, top 25. There's not much of a story here statistics-wise for Ian Poulter. It's the American assassinator. He is undefeated in singles matches in his Ryder Cup career. Tells you everything you need to know. Ian Poulter is the definition of Ryder Cup. Whenever he puts the blue and yellow on, it's game time. So Ian Poulter, not much more to say. Jon Rahm, what is there to say? Number one player in the world. We talked about him a little bit at the beginning of this, coming off a disappointing miscut, but I think more of a tune-up as opposed to really going after it. Bent, difficult, easy, windy, calm, doesn't matter. All green. Again, didn't play well at the Fortinet. A lot of it was here. He just didn't make a lot of putts in his 2 days. His irons have been a little bit leaky, but still, you're talking about the number one player in the world. Northern Trust 8.5, U.S. Open when he won 6.5, 1.5 at the PGA. It's Jon Rahm, number one player in the world. Is he going to be able to keep his collar cool enough? You say people get hot under the collar. He can certainly run hot. He can let emotions get to him. So, is he going to be paired with somebody that will be able to keep his emotions in check? But it's Jon Rahm. He's the number one player in the world. Not really a lot to analyze there. And you can see, first, second, ninth, second, seventh. His worst stats around the green, and he's still in the top half of the field. Almost top third. That's Jon Rahm. Jordan Spieth. The resurgent Jordan Spieth. Certainly resurgent, in April, May, that area, but has certainly cooled off. Cooled off recently. Now, best around the green player, pretty darn good putter. He's never been fantastic off the tee. He really has to rely on hitting fairways and or his short game prowess. He has to hit his fairways because he's not long. He's kind of like another Harris English in the sense that, if they're not hitting their fairways or at least giving themselves a chance at hitting the green, they're going to struggle. So Jordan Spieth, Bent's his favorite surface, and he's generally a pretty good putter. Easy, difficult, doesn't matter. Doesn't play his best in the wind, but it's not like it's a negative. But again, I still have some concerns. Tour Championship played really darn bad. I mean, really bad. 6 strokes with the irons there. BMW was not good. It was only mediocre in his best aspects. 1.5 off the tee. He loses 5.5 at the Northern Trust. There was a run here where it was really good. All the green here. But, what's there to say? It's just he has not been playing well lately. The thing is, you can pretty much guarantee that a pairing is going to be him and Justin Thomas. So we will see how those two play off of each other. I think it'll be a pretty successful pairing. They've always wanted to play, so there's no no surprises there. They know each other's game well. It's a matter of executing, and right now Jordan Spieth hasn't been. Just to be completely honest, he just hasn't been. I'm scrolling to see if I can find the match play. It doesn't look like I'm going to. There's the Players, Travelers Open. Definitely wasn't in November. Masters Shell, yeah. So I'll have to look for that individually as a tournament here after the player breakdown. But another player for the Americans who's not coming in with good form. So you got to hope that a return to form quickly happens, or they find a way to get it done. And of the people that I have mentioned that I don't have a lot of confidence in, which I don't think I have a lot in Spieth, but I do have some in the sense that what his game is around the green and making putts, he can find a way to salvage that par, especially in singles and in 4-ball, where par can win a hole sometimes. So, granted, he's not in good form. I'm not very confident in it, but I can see a path to where he would be successful. Speaking of his partner, Justin Thomas, next up. The putting's going to be an issue. That's the best way I can put it, because we're not on POA. And even on POA, he's not great on only 2/10. But, he's losing strokes on bent. He plays well when it's difficult or not. Again, don't let this graph fool you. 1.5 strokes. Some guys we were looking at were a half. This is all the way up to a 1.5. That's why it's important to look at your metrics here, your y-axis. And he plays extremely well, wind, calm or not. So that part right here is not a worry. It's the bent greens. Again, putting has always been kind of his bugaboo. The irons are world class. Off the tees, generally pretty darn good. Comes in with some pretty good form. Was slightly negative off the tee at the Tour Championship, but top 25 at the BMW, where he was the best off the tee. Northern Trust, very, very good. Even was making his putts. He just couldn't chip very well, which is not a Justin Thomas thing. So I would consider this an outlier, and he still almost won the tournament. Coming in with some pretty darn good form. His and Jordan Spieth's game complement each other a lot, especially for 4-ball. Foursomes might be a tad bit different if Justin Thomas is the one that has to make the putt. But 4-ball, these two can play really well, and even in foursomes, their games complement each other. Justin Thomas is good off the tee. Both of them are good with their irons. Certainly Justin Thomas is better, but Spieth's not a slouch with his irons. Whereas Spieth is around the green and putting and Thomas is more of these two. So their games complement each other. You just have to hope that Thomas isn't the one that has to make the 8-footer for par, which is going to happen. It's going to happen from time to time. So I have no doubt that those two are going to be paired together. We'll see how Captain Steve Stricker chooses to deploy them. But I'm confident that that's going to be one of the pairings. Lee Westwood, Ageless Lee, the resurgent Lee Westwood. Bent, not his best putting surface. He plays very well when it's difficult. I'll give you that. He's kind of like the other Euro with Bernd Wiesberger. Does not play well in the wind. Does not play very well in the wind. Now, come Sunday, probably going to be okay. But that's something to keep an eye on for Friday. Honestly, Padraig Harrington might sit him on Friday. I could see that happening with Lee Westwood being the oldest competitor here at Whistling Straits. Definitely, you don't want to overexert him, I guess. I could see him and Bernd being, a one round and singles player. And as we looked at, Lee Westwood's certainly not a good putter. Never been good around the green. His game has been very, very shaky since the 2-week stretch where he was just in fuego. 2 solo seconds at the Arnold Palmer and the Players where he was just lighting up the course. His irons were dialed in. He was great at his chipping. He was making putts at Sawgrass. But since then, his game's deteriorated. Not necessarily in skill, but just, he just has not had the results. Not much more to say there. The stats look, say it for themselves. He just hasn't been good the last half of this year. So him and Bernd Wiesberger are the two kind of Euros I don't have a lot of confidence in. Bernd mainly because he just hasn't shown it on American soil. He's definitely got game. He just hasn't shown it over here. Lee Westwood, it's more so the form since the 2 solo seconds earlier this year have just been, the form's been non-existent. You can see here, out of 24 players, 17th's his best. He's bottom third to bottom, 10% basically in all the stats. So, not a lot for Lee Westwood there. Yeah. I think he's a one round and singles player this year. Matthew Fitzpatrick, we talked about him a little bit last night on the initial research. He's always been known as a good around the green and good putter, but he's added weight to his. People want to talk about Bryson Shambo. This is another person who's gained weight to get stronger and get better off the tee. Off the tee used to be Matthew Fitzpatrick's real struggle. Now, I won't say it's a strength. He's certainly, in the positive with it. But it used to be really, really, it used to be a struggle for him. And now it's kind of the opposite, where his putting he's lost form with his putting. He's really lost touch around the green here. But you come up here, he's not a fantastic putter, but he's still okay at bent. He plays okay when it's difficult, but he is best in the wind. When a course gets fast and firm, like Whistling Straits is going to be, it's when Matthew Fitzpatrick shines. But again, another Euro that's coming in with not very good form. He missed the cut at the Northern Trust. Was really bad at the WGC St. Jude. Just bad. Pretty good Open. U.S. Open was, he just couldn't make a putt at the U.S. Open, or otherwise he played okay. Fitzpatrick, I have more confidence in Fitzpatrick than I do Westwood and Bernd Wiesberger. There's not a lot to go here. Call it a gut feeling this week. I think Fitzpatrick is going to play better than the stats indicate. That's my initial lean with Matthew Fitzpatrick. I just think his game is going to suit well for Whistling Straits. I mean, you can see here off the tee has been very solid of the measured rounds, and even the one at the Northern Trust, it was slightly negative. The stats don't back it up. This is more of a gut feeling by me. I think Fitzpatrick's going to play pretty well this week. But you can certainly use statistics to argue that he won't. I'm going off the tee metric here and saying that I think he'll play well, especially if the wind picks up. His off the tee and his I don't want to say his short game prowess, but his creativity with his irons and such, with his wedges. I think he'll make enough putts. Again, you see historically over at least his PGA Tour career, he's been a good putter. He's just lost form recently. I think I think he gets back to it. I really do. Moving to Patrick Cantley. Trying not to be too long in the show. We've got a lot to get to still. Patrick Hanley, what's there to say? I mean, he's best on bent. Plays very well when it's difficult. Very, very well. He's okay, wind or calm, all green. Meaning he's playing extremely well right now. Wins the BMW, wins the Tour. What's there to say? Patrick Hanley is playing well right now. Even though he's a Ryder Cup rookie, I think he's gonna shine this week for the Americans. The two pairings I were pretty confident in. It's no secret. It's Justin Thomas, Jordan Spieth, and it's Patrick Cantley, Xander Schofley. Those two partnered up quite a bit at the President's Cup. Played pretty well. So those are the two pairings that I'm pretty confident will happen. Not a lot to say. Patrick Hanley, I mean, his worst stat is 10th in strokes gained approach. It's still good. Paul Casey, we talked about him last night in the initial research a little bit. His putting is not in form right now. Plays best when it's difficult. He's okay, wind or calm, but bent is his favorite surface. Kind of like Berger, he's a world-class iron player, but he's been even more dialed in with his irons lately. I mean, you see the heavy green here from, May to now, basically. Now, he has been losing a lot on the greens, which is an issue. So you get somebody with him and, say, Ian Poulter, him and maybe Rahm or not Bernd, not Lee Westwood, but like I said, the best pairing I can think of would be him and Ian Poulter, because he is so good with his irons, and Ian Poulter is so good with the putter that as long as they're finding enough fairways, I mean, that team I think would be a very solid one and a very difficult one for the Americans to beat. You see all the very good iron play. Paul Casey's good enough off the tee. He's not long, but he's long enough, and he's good enough off the tee. Around the green is, mediocre to good. So him and Fitzpatrick are two kind of gut feelings I have that are going to play well this week. And that probably gives you an indication of who I think is going to win this Ryder Cup. But that was Paul Casey. Rory coming in with okay form. Plays well, difficult or not, or easy or difficult, calm or wind. Again, all green. Did not play particularly well at the Tour Championship. Did play extremely well at the BMW. Played okay at the Northern Trust. Won earlier at the Wells Fargo. Yeah, what's there to say? He's one of the best players in the world. His putter can be very, very hot and cold. So if it's a cold week, that gives you some hope as the Americans. But otherwise, his irons have kind of cooled off as well. He had a really bad iron week at the Northern Trust, but it's Rory. He's still very good off the tee. Usually pretty good with the irons. He's just Jekyll. If he's going to make putts, he's pretty hard to beat. That's the story on Rory. I didn't mean for that to rhyme, but it did. Sergio next. Sergio's never been a good putter. That's why when I was talking, trying to think of Paul Casey, I was like, well, nope, you definitely don't want Sergio. But again, typical Euro in the sense of when it gets difficult, he plays his best. When it's windy, he plays his best. And Bent's actually his best surface. Granted, take that with a bit of a grain of salt because he's just a bad putter in general. But Sergio's always been very good off the tee, and that's what plays here at Whistling Straits. Can he not putt with his eyes closed? If he doesn't putt with his eyes closed, or doesn't have to make putts, if you're playing him in foursomes, Sergio's a very tough beat in that case. When you start forcing him to make some putts, it could get real dicey for the Europeans. But I mean, his tee game, off the tee game, is immaculate. His irons can be pretty good. They can be pretty good. He's not in the best form with them, but certainly not. Certainly not coming in with say Bryson numbers or Spieth numbers or Westwood form, which is to say lack thereof. Again, it's off the tee. Can he open his eyes for putting? That's Sergio. Shane Lowry, someone who I think is also very sneaky good this week. He's pretty mediocre on the greens, if not bad. Plays extremely well when it's difficult. Plays long courses extremely well. He is amazing in the wind. This is 2 strokes, not just one. This is 2 strokes in the wind. Shane Lowry is going to be deployed both sessions on Friday. I can almost guarantee you that. And he's going to play well. His irons are fantastic right now. Measured last 11 to 12 measured rounds, all green. Some of it heavy green. Can he find enough putts or find a partner that can make some putts for him? Can he find enough fairways? But you can't argue with the irons. And you can't. He's just another player that when it gets very difficult on long, difficult courses, he's going to play very well. Hence the Open champion winner in 2019. Where'd it go? There it is. Gained 20 strokes that week when he ran away from the field. And it's not like he played bad leading up to this or played bad this year. He was top 10 at the Players, top 10 at the RBC Heritage, another Pete Dye course. Tied for, inside the top 5 on the PGA, another top 10 at the Memorial. He's in good form. People don't realize he's in very good form right now. And combine that with these two, those are 3 Euros that I have gut feelings are going to play pretty well. Casey, Fitzpatrick, and Lowry. Now, I could be wrong, but again, this has statistical backing as to why Shane Lowry is going to play well. Paul Casey has some statistical reason why I think he's going to play well. Fitzpatrick is just a gut call. It's just a gut call. So there's Shane Lowry. Trying to get through this a little bit quickly so we can look at some more data here. Scotty Sheffler, another rookie for the Americans, plays really darn good in the wind. Plays very darn good when it's difficult. He's just not a good putter and hasn't been lately. Very bad form here. Lost 6 at the Tour Championship. Now, granted, the Tour Championship is on Bermuda, but the Northern Trust is bent. Lost 3. BMW is bent. Lost 1. Travelers is bent. Negative. He's got the length to compete. I just have some concerns about the putting. I just have some concerns on the putting. Now, certainly he can get, fire hot with them. 8.7 at the U.S. Open. But I just have some issues with the putting. but he's definitely got the length. It'll be interesting to see how he's deployed. He's kind of a wild card for me. I don't know what to expect from Scotty Sheffler. Tony Finau, a lot of people know him. Long off the tee. He's pretty good. I mean, his best surface is bent. Plays his best in the wind. Plays his best when it's difficult, which is what you want. He's actually been very good lately with his putter. But you can see here the numbers just don't jump off the page. And when he goes bad with the putter, he goes very bad. -4. Here he was, slightly negative, but -6, -4.5. When he gets bad with the putter, he gets really bad. Can he make up for that this week? Sure. I mean, he's gained 5 here. He's gained 4. He's gained 6. Is the rest of his game good enough to make up for a bad putting week? Well, 11th out of 30 here, 34th in an invitational field at St. Jude, missed the cut at the Travelers, losing strokes putting. He was, top 20 and, 32nd at the Charles Schwab and the PGA. So he can compete when it's going bad, but, it's few and far between. I still think Tony Finau is going to be okay this week because he is so good off the tee, and his irons are pretty steady. They're pretty rock steady. He lost 3 here at the U.S. Open, but generally speaking, he is right around the 1.5 to -1.5. That's not a lot of variance when you think about it. He's generally just pretty steady, and generally pretty good steady. So I think Finau will be okay, especially since he's got some Ryder Cup history before. Tommy Fleetwood, half of the Mollywood combination that just tore the Americans apart last time in France. With no Molinari, we'll see how Padraig Harrington deploys him. Pretty much even on bent. Plays well when it's difficult, and most Euros plays well in the wind. He's always been known as a great iron player over the European Tour. It just hasn't translated here to America. So this is someone that I don't have a lot of confidence in Tommy Fleetwood. His one lone Ryder Cup success was in France, in Europe, where his game translates. And every time he's come over stateside, while he's had some success, 10th at the Arnold Palmer, top 20 at the Masters in the fall, it hasn't always clicked for him. You can see he's kind of whack-a-mole. 1 week his putting will be good, the next it'll be bad, and it's off the tee game that's good. Then the off the tee game kind of goes backwards. His irons are good, but as around the green falls, he's just kind of whack. I just don't have a lot of confidence in Tommy Fleetwood this week. I don't think it was an aberration in France. I think he fed off the crowd a lot, and he was just hot that week. He really was. 3 more players: Terrell Hatton. Another player that I'm kind of bearish on. I don't think I like Terrell Hatton this week. For a few reasons. Bent being his worst surface. He doesn't play bad when it's difficult, but he's okay whether it's easy or difficult. He's certainly not as good in the wind as other Euros and other players. And like with others, his putting is trending in the wrong direction. Now his around the green has been spectacular. He's always been a very good iron player. His off the tee game is worrying too. So when you combine off the tee woes or lessening with a deterioration, couldn't say that word for a second. Deterioration in your putting, the two things that play at Whistling Straits, driving and putting. When you're struggling with both of those, it's going to be difficult. So that's why I'm not exactly the highest on Terrell Hatton this week. Not to mention, there's a lot up here that's worrisome. Bent being his worst surface. Not the best when it's difficult. Not the best when it's windy. he might be another one of those one round singles players. Which you have a few of those for the Euros. Then again, you probably have a few of those for the Americans too. I just haven't called it out. But some of these are pretty egregious. I think that are one round in the singles for the Euros. Victor Hovland. This is not one. That's a one round and singles. Now, don't let the graph confuse you again. Remember, look at the y-axis. This is up to 1/10 of a stroke. 1/10. Now, yes, bent is his worst surface, but it's 1/10 of a stroke, not one stroke. 1/10. Plays well whether it's easy or difficult. He's about the third or fourth Euro that just doesn't play his best in the wind, which is surprising considering he played his college golf at Oklahoma State. Generally, they get some wind in that part of the country. He just hasn't been putting well recently. I mean, when I say not putting well, I mean shit-tastic recently putting. Losing 5, losing 2.5. His around the green game has always been pretty bad. Fortunately for him, that's the one stat that matters the least, but it's still going to come into play this week. This is where Victor Hovland shines. Long courses. This course is going to be long. It's going to be fast. It's going to be firm. He's going to take advantage of the par 5s, and no matter who his partner is, he can hit some irons. So you don't want to pair him with, say, Paul Casey or Sergio. You definitely want him with somebody like Bernd Wiesberger, perhaps a Ian Poulter, maybe a Rory as well. These two statistics are just elite. I mean, he gains 8 strokes with his irons at the Tour Championship, gains almost 5 at the Memorial, gains 5 almost at the Valspar. And the thing is, before this recent stretch with his putter, he was really darn good. Game 2, game 4, game 4, game 2, game 4. He's one of those volatile putters. If he has a good putting week, look out, because I'm pretty sure these two statistics are going to stay the same. The off the tee and the approach. Pretty sure those are going to stay the same. So this putting just comes back to even. Or even if it's negative a half, Hovland's going to be a thorn in the side for the Americans this week. If he has to rely on the short game, it's going to be bad for the Euros. But there's a lot to like here for Victor Hovland minus the recent putting form. And the last player, Xander Schofley, plays extremely well when it's difficult. Very good putter. Doesn't play his best in the wind, which is a little concerning for sure. He's just all around a good player. He's never been good around the green. We know that. If we're in the analytics community, we've known that he's just not good around the green. His putting has fallen off, which is concerning. Because there was a time here early, February, January into the fall season. I mean, look at these numbers of the putting: 6.5, 5, 2, 6,